Looking for these better days.
It is Wednesday, May 13th. I'm Scott Seidenberg. Here's what you need to know to make today a better day. The Wemby revenge spot comes through in force. Plus, the action on the ice gets heated up, and we'll have a preview of the PGA Championship as well. That's right. It's all coming up here on this episode of Better Day, presented by FanDuel. Brad Thomas will join us to give us that PGA Championship preview. Top 5 bets, top 10 bets, top 20 bets, outright bets. It's all coming up here on this episode. But we start with the NBA playoffs, where last night the Wemby revenge game played out exactly how we thought it was going to play out. San Antonio defeats Minnesota 126-97 as they take a 3-2 lead in the series. And we gave out a couple of bets up on betterday.com. We talked about it here on the pod, gave it out in the newsletter as well. It was the Spurs to win the first quarter and cover in the first quarter, and that's exactly what they did with a 34-30 lead after the first quarter. And we also bet Victor Wembanyama to go over 6.5 points in the first quarter. I wish I laddered that thing, because Wemby went over 6.5 points in the blink of an eye. He had 21 points in the first half, 16 points in a span of just 6 minutes. And Victor Wembanyama was also a force on defense, limiting the Timberwolves to just 7 points on 3 of 11 from the field on shots that he contested. Wemby, in the first quarter, outscored the Timberwolves 16-11 in the first, 7-8 minutes or so. And he became the first player this postseason to register a 20-point double-double, 21 points and 11 boards, in any half. He's also the second player to average at least 20 points, 10 boards, and 4 blocks over his first 9 career playoff games. That's since blocks became an official stat. Just a dominant effort from Wemby, and that's what we expected after his first career ejection, and a dominant effort by the Spurs as they take the commanding 3-2 lead. Is it commanding? It's not. I mean, obviously, Minnesota can stave off elimination on their home floor, and then we see what happens come Game 7 back in San Antonio. But right now, the Spurs just look like a team on a mission, and you just wonder if Wemby wasn't ejected in game number 4, would this series be over last night? And it probably would have been. Here's your line coming up for Friday's game number 6. That's right, a couple of days off here before game number 6 on Friday. The Spurs 4.5-point favorites on the road at Minnesota. Now, if we go back to games 2 and 3 games 3 and 4 in this series, it was San Antonio as a 5.5-point favorite on the road in game number 4. They were a 5.5-point favorite on the road in game number 3. So the zigzag kind of baked in here to the spread, with it being a 4.5-point spread. Also, some injuries possibly, but really, it's the desperation spot for Minnesota, playing with their season on the line there on Friday to avoid elimination. But there's not much more you can say about how impressive the San Antonio Spurs were last night in taking this 3-2 series lead. On your NBA schedule for tonight, it is the game number 5 between the Cavaliers and the Pistons from Detroit. Pistons are a 3.5-point favorite up on FanDuel, and this is the same line. We've talked about it before. The same line that we had in both games 1 and 2, with Detroit being at home. So there's been no adjustment after the first 4 games of this series, or no adjustment after games 3 and 4. The home team has won every game of this series, just like the home team won every game of the first round series for the Cleveland Cavaliers. Does it play out differently now? Does Cleveland play better now that they've figured out how to limit James Harden's turnovers? Do they play better now that Donovan Mitchell had a breakout performance? Or is this an opportunity for Detroit at home to bounce back in a big spot, to claim a 3-2 series lead, just like we saw the San Antonio Spurs do last night? Whatever happens in the full game, I know one thing. The Pistons are going to come out strong in the first quarter. That is the trend that we have talked about for the entirety of these playoffs. That is the trend that we are backing here tonight. We backed it last night with the San Antonio Spurs, and we're going to back it here tonight. It is the home team, the team coming off of the loss, the team that is favored and we're backing them in the first quarter. Right now, up on FanDuel, first quarter spread between the Pistons and the Cavaliers is the Detroit Pistons minus a half. So essentially, you can do minus 125 on minus a half, or you can do the first quarter money line, which is actually it's a little bit more expensive, but that's more expensive because you're getting the push protection. So up on FanDuel right now, Pistons money line in the first quarter is minus 138. Pistons minus a half in the first quarter is minus 125. I would go ahead and just pay the 13 cents extra to get that push protection just in case it's a tie game after the first quarter. But I am confident in Detroit having a lead at the end of the first quarter. Here's the numbers in these playoffs. Teams that are coming off of a straight up loss and then are favored in the next game are 19-6 straight up, 18-6-1 against the spread in the first quarter of that next game. Spurs covered last night, the first quarter, and we're going to see the Pistons cover tonight in the first quarter. So, best bet Pistons first quarter money line minus 138 up on FanDuel. Stanley Cup playoffs last night. Our lean came through as the Buffalo Sabres got a 3-2 win in Montreal against the Canadiens to even up that series at 2 games apiece. It wasn't a best bet for me. It was just a strong lean, as we indicated on the podcast yesterday and on the newsletter as well, with my whole prediction that this series was going to be, or my assessment that this series was going to be a lengthy series. With Montreal having the 2-1 lead, it had me, I had to be on Buffalo because I don't think Buffalo would come back from 3-1 down to force a game 7. I think that this series was just going to be a back and forth series. And so with Montreal taking games 2 and 3, I liked Buffalo to claim game 4. And that's exactly what they did last night. They opened up the scoring about 5-6 minutes into the first period. And then immediately were trailing 2-1 at the end of the first period. Tage Thompson on a power play goal tied it in the second period. And Zach Benson on the power play got the go-ahead goal early on in the third period. No empty netter, but Buffalo, as a short road dog, gets the 3-2 win and evens up that series at 2 games apiece. Game number 5 will be back in Buffalo, and the line for that game coming up tomorrow is Sabres minus 118. So short favorites, Sabres minus 118. And elsewhere last night in overtime, Pavel Dorofiev's second goal of the night gave the Golden Knights a 3-2 win over the Anaheim Ducks and a 3-2 series lead. Our shots on goal props continue to cash, as well as the sprinkles on the anytime goal scorers. Thank you, Pavel Dorofeev, for the early winner last night. So we continue to give out the advice when we bet on these anytime goal scorers, on these shot on goal props to go over, we always recommend you sprinkle on the anytime goal scorer because there are times where you can lose the shots on goal prop if it's 3.5 and they only have 3, or if it's 2.5 and they only have 2. But if they score a goal, you make some money back at a nice plus money price. So always sprinkle, always sprinkle. Dorothea does it for us again. Tonight, the Colorado Avalanche will look to close out the Minnesota Wild. Colorado up on FanDuel right now, heavy minus 210 favorites, total of 6.5. And I do think that Colorado closes out the series tonight. Because it is an elimination game, I'm comfortable laying the 1.5. You can get multiple empty net goals here in a closeout situation because for Minnesota, you lose by 1, you lose by 2, you lose by 3. It doesn't matter. So as long as Colorado has some sort of a lead late in the third period, we will get multiple opportunities for empty net goals. So right now, Colorado minus 1.5 is plus 122. If you're interested in playing an alternate spread, you could chase a little more plus money by playing maybe Colorado minus 2.5 goals, get upwards of plus 200 or so on that. Just an idea, just a sprinkle, just an idea, because like I said, with an elimination game, as long as Colorado has some sort of a lead late in the third period, you're going to get at least one empty net goal. Major League Baseball, we have 2 day games today. Yankees are at the Orioles. Max Fried on the mound for the Bombers. Kyle Bradish goes for the O's, and the Angels are at the Guardians. Reed Detmers for the Angels and Parker Messick for the Guardians. No sweep situation in Baltimore as the Yankees picked up a win yesterday to snap their losing streak, but a sweep situation today in Cleveland as the Guardians took the first two games of this series. So, you know what that means? We fire up an underplay. And with these pitchers, it seems like a pretty good play. Total is very low though at 7. Maybe if you can find a 7.5, it will be worth a play. But monitor that total. It is extremely low there in Cleveland between Reed Detmers and Parker Messick. You can find more Major League Baseball insight on our MLB Game Center up on betterday.com, now including pitcher versus batter matchups. Our game projections continue to stay hot. Yesterday, identifying a false favorite in the Washington Nationals Cincinnati Reds game. Our Game Center predicted the Nationals to win that game, and they were plus 120, plus 130 dogs, and they win 10-4 over the Reds. So become a Better Day Insider or Premium member, and make sure you head to our MLB Game Center and check out all of those prop projections there. You can find out how to become a Better Day Insider or Premium member by clicking on the link on our homepage at betterday.com. Let's get to some golf and preview the action at the PGA Championship getting underway tomorrow. All right, joining us now on this episode of Better Day, presented by FanDuel. He is our golf analyst. Of course, you can read his stuff at PGA Tour. You see him on CBS Sports and Sportsline and BetUS TV as well. He is our friend Brad Thomas on Twitter at Mr. Brad Thomas. Brad, thanks so much for joining us as we get ready for another premier event here on the PGA Tour schedule. It is the PGA Championship beginning tomorrow. Tell us about the course, tell us about this tournament and the field and what we can expect here coming up tomorrow.
Yeah, this is a fun golf course, Ronnick Golf Course. It was the host, for those who remember, of the 2018 BMW Championship. It has hosted a major before. In fact, it's actually hosted a major at all three levels. It hosted the Women's PGA Championship, a Senior PGA Championship, and the PGA Championship for the men's. What was that, back in 1962 or something? It's an interesting course because I think if you just look at the metrics, right? You think of a 7,394 yard par 70 course, you think it's long, right? And
Mm,
I'll be the first to tell you that I think it's fake long. And what I mean by that is there's at least 9 par 4s where if your guy is hitting the ball at least 300 off the tee, he's going to have a wedge in. And I don't care what anyone says, if a golfer's going driver wedge on 9 of the par 4s, that is not a long golf course. It's really interesting too because there's not much defense for this course, right? Like the rough is thick. It's about 3.5 inches long, but it's just weird to say that that's going to be the defense when golfers are hitting wedges in their
mhm.
second shot. And basically what I'm saying is it's a big difference if it's thick rough and a golfer has a 5 iron, right?
Sure.
There's no risk reward analysis that's necessary for this golf course if it's tight, if it's going to be like tight quarters that golfers have to hit. They're going to opt for driver every single time. And I think that makes it really, really interesting for a PGA championship. Last we saw is the BMW championship, the scores were low, and I think it's going to continue to be so.
So, what metrics are we looking for to analyze this field and come up with plays? Do we look for driving accuracy? Do we want guys who are really good on their second shots? Because you mentioned that they're going to be shooting wedges on their second shots. Do we want guys that are green in regulation guys? Like, which metrics are we looking for this tournament?
Yeah, so I did it a little different this week. I obviously naturally built a model with some of my favorite metrics, but I needed to tweak the metrics a little bit. And what I mean by that is I like strokes gained off the tee a lot, but that's a combination of driving distance, driving accuracy. I tweaked it and made it an 80-20 split where I went 80% on driving distance, 20% on accuracy.
Hmm,
And why I did that was because I could just say 0% on accuracy and just have the straight bombers, but more times than not, those guys who are only hitting fairways at around a 52% clip, they're not just going to course correct, especially in one of the highest leverage tournaments that they're going to play all season. So I wanted to add a little bit of that. And it kind of, what the numbers did, it skewed it from guys like Aldrich Potgieter being towards the top to like guys like Scotty Scheffler being the top. Like Scotty Scheffler is a guy who's top 15 in driving distance and accuracy, right? So it made that number for what turned out to be the most premium players, the best players like a John Rahm, like a Rory McIlroy, like a Scotty Scheffler.
So you mentioned Scotty Scheffler. Obviously, he's top of the odds. We look at FanDuel right now to win the PGA championship. He is plus 480. We saw a repeat winner in the first major of the year. Rory McIlroy went back to back. Scotty Scheffler is the defending PGA championship winner. Does he go back to back here and win this event here this weekend?
It's funny because we're in a time where we are closely monitoring Scotty Scheffler, not only as the player, but monitoring his odds. Not too long ago, he was plus 300 to win a major championship.
Hmm.
At the start of the week, he was plus 550, and his odds have shortened significantly because it makes so much sense. The last, what, 5 majors he's been in, he's finished no worse than T7. He's won 2 of them and finished runner up at the last one. What's happened with Scotty Scheffler's game has been pretty fun to monitor if you are one of those guys who likes digging into the data. I'm one of those guys who I don't care about a full tournament spectrum. I want to know round by round what is happening with this golfer. And Scotty Scheffler back at the Genesis Invitational, that's really where it started to be that use case of Scotty Scheffler, what's going on, man? And what I
Mm.
mean, and what I say is Scotty Scheffler in the first round lost strokes on approach. He then lost strokes on approach in the fourth round. That's really weird, right? Like that doesn't happen with Scotty Scheffler where he's losing strokes on approach in 2 rounds in a tournament. Well, then he follows that up where he finishes T24 at the Arnold Palmer Invitational, loses strokes on approach in the third and the fourth round. Well, things started to get a little bit better for him. He only lost strokes in 1 round at the Players, and then it really started taking off. His irons started to really, really heat up at the Masters, and it's correlated, right? He finished second at the Masters. It continued to heat up at the RBC Heritage, and he probably had a pretty poor iron display, but gained strokes, finished runner up, and then he absolutely blitzed the field on approach at the Cadillac Championship, finished runner up again. How could you not bet Scotty Scheffler in some capacity this week? Whether that's if you're just going to take a single bullet flyer on him to win, or you're
Mhm.
just going to go and the route I did was take him to finish inside the top 5. I just routed off all these stats about Scotty Scheffler and his major acumen over the last 5, 6 starts. I just rattle off stats of his last 3 starts where he's finished runner up in all 3. Scotty Scheffler is going to contend. So why not find some kind of way to play him? And I'm not going to sit here and say I want to bet someone who's minus 150, minus 200 for top 10. I'm fine with the top 5 because I know come Sunday, if he's not in contention, that final round is going to put him close to the top of the leaderboard because that's the type of golfer he is.
And right now, up on FanDuel, you can get even money on Scotty Scheffler to finish top 5, including ties, which is big, right, Brad? Like you want to
Yes.
make sure that you are betting, including ties, because we know that sports books, when it comes to golf, sometimes they have the dead heat rules, which would mean that if you're T5, you actually don't get paid out on a top 5 finish. So
You'll
whenever
lose
you
money.
yes, you
Depending
lose.
on how many
Yes.
golfers, right? Like, so let's say there's a 3-way T5 tie and you lay minus 110. So what they're going to do is take half your stake, right? So you already lose that. And then they're going to dead heat the rest of it, which is 3. So that's a third of that.
Mm.
And you're going to end up losing money because it's not going to be enough money to make back the other half of your stake.
Wow. Yeah. So
Yeah.
always make sure that your sportsbook says, like FanDuel, it does say top X finish, including ties. And right now, Scotty Scheffler, even money to finish top 5. Let's talk about another, like, top 5, top 10, top 20 finish. What other golfers are you looking at to place a prop bet on this weekend in any of those categories? Maybe it's even a top 40. Like,
Yeah.
where are you looking in the finishing bets?
Scott, I'm gonna tell you, I'm not really a big Ricky Fowler truther, and there's a lot of people out there who just jam Ricky Fowler at every tournament, and I'm probably like the opposite. I think a lot of that has to do with growing up loving Ricky Fowler. Like, we're similar in age, so like as he was like young and good at golf, I was like a young golf fan,
Flat
and
brim and wearing all orange.
yeah, yeah, yeah. And so like for me, it takes these moments of realization where I'm super excited to find something out. And I posted this on my X account. I did a little cross analysis of I wanted to see that I actually pulled the list of the top 25 golfers in strokes gained putting over the last 24 rounds. And I wanted to see how those golfers did over that 24 round sample in ball striking category. And then so when I got all the way to the 16th golfer, before someone had positive numbers in ball striking, and that's Ricky Fowler. So I'll
Mm.
say the stat out loud because it just sounds crazy to believe. thinking about professional golfers, but Ricky Fowler is the only golfer inside the top 16 in strokes gained putting that is also inside the top 40 in strokes gained ball striking over the last 24 rounds. So that made me dig a little bit deeper into his stat profile, right? Like, Ricky, how are you doing this? What is happening? Well, it goes back to like the RBC heritage because before that he had missed consecutive cuts, but before that he had lost like four straight rounds on approach. He gained on approach about three strokes at the RBC, 3.6 at Cadillac, 2.8 at Truist, T8, T9,
Mm,
runner up, and you know he's going to putt well. So when his irons are really hot, it's like kind of automatic. He finished 14th at the Masters, so I took him top 20. It was, and this was a market. You can play it with ties for the same price. So just make sure you shop around. It's about plus 200. Ricky Fowler, what I've noticed about his game, and this was a deep dive that I've done over like the past 5 seasons, is he has about five really, really strong approach tournaments where he's just gaining on approach. And it's something that stays consistent. The last time that he did this was in 2023, where it was really noticeable. He had gains, and he finished T4, T3, T9, T8, and then won the Rocket Classic. So I ended up betting him in the top 20. I probably will take him outright.
mm.
Depending if I can find like a 75 to 1 or 80, that'd probably be fair value for me. But the 20 to 1 on the 2 to 1 on the top 20 price for Ricky Fowler, the way he's hitting the ball, the way he rolls it, yeah, I thought that was just a steal.
Yeah, plus 195 up on FanDuel right now. Ricky Fowler, top 20 with ties. If you're curious about the Ricky outright, 60 to 1 up on FanDuel. Speaking of 60 to 1, Brad, you've been the king of crushing these outrights. What is it? Six winners this year.
Six, three straight.
Three straight outrights, six outright winners this year. Give the people maybe it's not like your best bet for an outright, but like a bomb shot, somebody that would pay out nicely, like a Ricky Fowler, but maybe they can bet in T5, T10, and still make a good plus money cash on that. Is there somebody that you have added to your portfolio here as an outright winner?
Yeah, I'm gonna go. It's around the 74. I think I got around 90. I'm still would play it all the way to 65. And that's JJ Spawn. And before you guys go ahead and load up your accounts, I just want to make sure you realize that this bet may drive you nuts because there are things about JJ Spawn's game that make me go insane. He can go out there and he can gain 5 and 6 strokes on approach and lose 4 strokes with his putter. So just make sure you are very clear that he might be missing 6 foot birdie putts all week long, but there's so much value in his number for a guy that's gained on approach in every single tournament since the beginning of March. The beginning of March. That is
Mm,
such a large sample size. And finally, since his win, obviously he won what was it, the Valero Texas Open? He had a positive putting performance at the Truist Championship. He gained on approach, he gained off the tee, he gained around the green, he gained putting, full complete gain, finished T5, probably could have been in contention if he played a little bit better earlier in the week. Yeah, I'm all over him at this number. JJ Spawn, he's already won a major championship, already won this season. I feel like people kind of forget about him because he's not a sexy household name.
sure. Yep.
But I mean, he's what's crazy about JJ Spawn, and I don't want to get on my soapbox too much about a 90 to 1 ticket. But what's crazy about him is I don't think people realize he's sneaky long, right? He still averages about 308 yards off the tee, and his driver's fairly accurate. I think he's closer to like the 61%. I was looking for guys who are like 63 or higher, but 308 and 61 is still really good metrics.
Okay. Now, final thing before we let you go, Brad, and we appreciate your time. You guys want to learn more about what Brad does, head to his Twitter page at Mr. Brad Thomas. You, of course, can catch his work on the PGA Tour on PGA.com, CBS Sports, Sportsline. He also covers soccer for BetUS TV. So we're about a month away from the World Cup. Brad will be with us to preview the World Cup, give out some best bets as well as we get closer to the start of footy. But let's give the people an outright winner here from the favorites. Okay, so we mentioned Scotty is plus 480 up on FanDuel. Rory, your second favorite, plus 950. Cam Young plus 1200. John Rahm 15 to 1. I'll go one further. Ludwig Oberg 16 to 1. If you had to choose between those 5, who are you taking?
Without a doubt, I'm taking Cameron Young. And to be transparent, I bet him like a month or 2 ago, and I still like him around the 12 to 15 number because what you're getting out of Cam Young is the combination of distance and accuracy. When he won the Cadillac Championship 2 weeks ago, everyone talked about how can you win this tournament and what is the best skill set, length and accuracy.
Mm,
For me, there was only one golfer in the entire world. Well, Oberg wasn't in the tournament, so I couldn't use him. But one golfer in the entire world who was playing in that field that fit that. I bet on him that week, and he didn't even have a great approach tournament. He went out there. The first couple rounds, he couldn't gain on off the tee. Then he couldn't gain on approach. But what he did, he went out there and gained 7 strokes with his putter. Won the Cadillac
mm.
Championship. What happened at the Players Championship? Players Championship, his driver was good, his putter was okay, but he was gaining massive on approach. What happened at the Masters, where he probably should have won that tournament? He gained across the bag. What's fun about Cameron Young is he's got a complete game. And we've known that for some time. We've known that since he got out of Wake Forest, right? What he lacked was in between the ears, right? He didn't have that mental fortitude to close out tournaments. He has that now. The
Mm.
dude has won twice this season. He's won 2 signature events. He freaking contended at the Masters. I like him to win this week. And I don't know if this has been talked about enough. And I kind of love stories and things that make you feel good. Probably blame it on my wife. She's like one of the people who's like, oh my God, tell me a good story about this guy to make me want to follow him. She doesn't care
Sure.
about the stats. Cameron Young, for those who don't know, is the son of a PGA professional, a teaching professional. What is the PGA Championship? It's a tournament for the PGA of America for teaching professionals. I know this tournament means a lot more to Cameron Young than any of the tournaments that he plays in. So it'd just be so sweet. The guy whose dad is his swing coach, the PGA of America coach is his coach, So I just feel like it's such a really good story. He's having a really good season, and now he's shown that he can put it all together and actually close out tournaments.
I love it. I love it. The story's great, but we know the form is great, and we know the numbers great. It's a good bet. Cam Young, 12-1 right now, up on FanDuel. You can shop around, find a good number, a better number if you can, but we're going to be on it as an outright winner. Also, the bets that we gave out earlier, including Ricky, top 20, Scotty Scheffler, top 5, JJ Spawn as our long shot bomb. Again, he's Brad Thomas on Twitter at Mr. Brad Thomas. Brad, thanks so much, brother. Good luck with all your bets this weekend.
Thanks for having me. Take care.
Great stuff there from our friend Brad Thomas. Again, always on Twitter at Mr. Brad Thomas. You can hit me up at Scott's On Air. Make sure that you are following Better Day at Better_Day, where Colby Marchio and Jake Hassan will be streaming another episode of their Off the Board podcast live on the Better Day Twitter page and the Better Day YouTube account coming up this afternoon. Plenty of Major League Baseball talk on their pod. For Brad Thomas, Colby, Jake, who are doing their pod later, I'm Scott Seidenberg. Here's hoping you make today and every day a better day.
If you like the show, please take a moment to rate, review, and subscribe. It really does help the show to grow. Thank you for listening.